We have lots to discuss here in today's video, including some trade talk around a variety of teams, including the St. Louis Blues. Who will be the first to go? What's the first domino to fall with the Blues organization? And one update from an NHL insider suggests it could be their captain. We'll discuss some of the teams that he's been linked to, as well as other members of the Blues who could find themselves on the move based on the latest information in the rumor mill. Plus, Steven Stamkos could find himself on the move as well this year. Some latest intel from another insider with some teams where he feels could be good landing spots or logical landing spots for Stamkos in the future. We have a signing as well with the Avalanche, some key injuries tonight for both Ottawa and Toronto. Plus, we have some updates from Elliotte Friedman on the GNM meetings in Toronto, including some updates that it could impact the Olympics. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here in today's video. We'll kick things off with a quick update from the NHL waiver wire. We did have a waiver activity yesterday to follow up on. That was Carson Meyer, the Buffalo Sabres, who was injured during the preseason, didn't get a chance to be properly assigned, so was on season opening injured reserve. He's now cleared waivers, and the Sabres have been able to assign him down to their AHL affiliate. As I mentioned as well, we have a signing with the Colorado Avalanche today. They've extended youngster Avs Brindley to a 2-year extension. He's been a terrific fit. Obviously, he was an original draft pick of the Columbus Blue Jackets. I know he was a college teammate, I believe, and a good buddy of Adam Fantilli. Found himself over with the Avalanche now, and he's actually been producing at a good rate. He's been able to make the team at a training camp, and looks to me like he should be a good long-term fit there. We'll see. Now, this contract is still a two-way deal in the first year, which will be next season, which is a little bit surprising, but it is a little bit more lucrative. It pays him $850,000 at the NHL level, $200K at the American Hockey League level, and it has a total guaranteed income of $300K. Although I'd suggest that if he keeps playing the way he is this year, he's most likely going to stick in the NHL. But if he does, next year he'd make a full $850, and that's still good value for what I think he's going to give them. The second year of the contract is a one-way contract, and he gets a small bump up in pay from $850 up to $900,000. Well, like I said, made the team at a camp. He's got skill. He's got speed. He's been playing in a variety of situations, and he's been one of the bright spots with the Avalanche. I know, obviously, teams like Colorado, Edmonton, some of these high-end teams, especially in the Western Conference, have found themselves having to find some new, cheaper depth to kind of fill some roster spots as time has gone on here. And he's been a terrific find, as I think the Avalanche right now probably just might have the edge by the looks of things, as of right now, at least for the Western Conference, for being one of the deepest rosters, and might be, we'll see, the toughest out when it comes to the playoffs, but that's a long ways away. Now, as I mentioned, we get a bunch of updates on some injuries here, and a couple of new significant ones, or ones that could be significant at least tonight for a couple of the Canadian teams. But we'll start with Carolina. A couple of updates. They were able to get back Shane Gostisbehere, so he's back in the lineup tonight, which was a good sighting. Unfortunately, the Canes did lose the game tonight to the Capitals, but Gostisbehere returned. They did get bad news, though, on Charles Alexis Legault, who has been up with the team recently. Of course, we know the Canes are dealing with a lot of injuries, and he joins that list of the walking wounded on IR. It's a bit of a fluke play, but ended up getting a skate blade cut on his hand or hand wrist area. It cut a tendon, and it was a bad situation that had to require surgery, and he's going to be out for about 3 to 4 months. So you feel for the kid just getting up to the NHL and getting some action in, and then something fluky like that happens, but turns out to be reasonably serious. The San Jose Sharks tonight also they activated William Eklund, so he's officially off IR, which is good. Sharks won again tonight as well against Minnesota. They are turning into a real solid team. I tell you, teams like San Jose, Chicago, we expected them to be better this year, but even Anaheim, especially Anaheim, actually, they're all not only are they doing better, but they're doing way better than I know that a lot of people predicted, myself included. I expected the Ducks to be, kind of in the conversation for one of the last playoff spots. I thought they would rise to that level of being in the wild card race. And it's early, right? So things can change. But the way things are going, they look like they could be a Western powerhouse and might have a shot at winning the Pacific. I mean, it's early, but they're right at the top there. And the Sharks and the Blackhawks, I didn't think they'd be in the playoff conversation. I expected them to be better, take a good step forward. Maybe next year we'd start to see them compete for playoffs, but really, to be honest, they have a shot this year. It's pretty, it's early yet, right? But guys like Celebrini and Bedard have really stepped up their game and taken it to a whole new level here. So it'll be really going to be a fun scenario to watch with some of those up-and-coming teams, especially the ones in the West that are making the most noise. Utah's better this year as well. So we could see an entirely new group of playoff teams. It's really interesting. You don't usually get a ton of turnover year to year. It's usually one or two teams in each conference that switches out. But there could be more this year. We'll have to wait and see. It's going to be a fun season, I think. Overall, as I mentioned, a couple of updates regarding the Leafs and the Senators, most of which came tonight. One will start the Leafs, an update that came before the game. Goaltender Joseph Woll, of course, as we know, is on a conditioning stint with the Toronto Marlies of the American Hockey League. Joseph Woll is expected to start their game tomorrow on Wednesday and will play the full game. And then he's expected, as long as everything's going well, to be recalled after that. Now, that's going to be welcome news if he can get back and hopefully be back at least close to his normal play, because they lost Anthony Stolarz tonight due to an injury. Now, Craig Berube said that he didn't believe it was anything serious, but we'll have to wait and see, of course. We didn't really get a full update. Of course, the Leafs had a poor start. They didn't have a good game against the Boston Bruins. They lost the game. They did kind of make it a little bit closer. I think it was a 5-3 final, I do believe. I've seen bits and pieces. I had a bunch of games flipping through here tonight, including the Leafs, the Habs, and the Sens all here in my region playing interesting games tonight. But, the Stolarz didn't have a great night. Left the game. Was revealed that he wasn't on the bench after he left the game and was dealing with an injury. But maybe even more serious than that is Austin Matthews is injured now too. Matthews did take a big hit from Nikita Zadorov of the Bruins. Wouldn't quite confirm, but it looks like that's what caused the injury. It was kind of open ice from behind. Didn't really like the hit, but we'll see what happens. I don't know the full extent. Berube said after the game that Matthews was still being evaluated. Probably at least tomorrow before they know more. So again, the Leafs have been struggling as of late, defensively especially. They're one of the higher scoring teams in the NHL. Putting the puck in the net, for the most part here, hasn't been too much of a problem. Like I said, as of a couple of days ago, I think this numbers have changed a bit now, but I know a couple of videos back, I was saying how they were tied for first for the highest scoring team in the NHL. I think they've dropped a couple of spots since then, but still overall good, right? But they've given up more. Like, they're still got a negative goal differential, which is the case for a few teams near the top of that list. They're not the only ones, but unfortunately other teams that are in that predicament have found ways to get a few more points and pick up a few more wins here and there. So ultimately the Leafs are not where they want to be. Thankfully, I guess in a way, it's early enough in the season in that the Atlantic Division and the Eastern Conference is still pretty jammed, pretty tight. I think really, even though you look at the top of the list, you see teams like the Habs, the Bruins, and the Senators, which might be a surprise. I don't know how many people would have picked any of those teams to be in the top three. I think we probably would have said they might all be in a battle for wildcard spots. It's probably the most common prediction, I think, between those three teams amongst the grand majority of analysts and fans. But, it's not like the Leafs, the Lightning, the Panthers are completely out of it. By any means, they're not. And it's only a small gap. But, if you can go on a 2-3 game, 4-game winning streak, you could go from the bottom to the top, or you could go from the top to the bottom if you go on a losing streak like that. So it's still pretty tight. So that's probably for the Leafs, the way they're playing is probably a good thing. If they can find a way to be better here in the short term. A lot of people in Leafs Nation, I think, are pointing the finger at the new D coach, Derek Lalonde, of course, who took over from Lane Lambert, who became the head coach of the Seattle Kraken this past offseason. They did make a lot of changes to their defensive structure and how they play, and it's obviously not working well. So I'm not sure what's going to happen in Toronto, but it's you combine some struggles and some poor play, like I said, in the last few games especially, then combine that with Stolarz maybe having to miss time. Wall's still working his way back, hasn't played yet this year. So now you're really relying heavily on Dennis Hildeby. And then you've got Matthews now possibly missing time too, which we don't know the extent of that. So it's just been a bit of a bad news week so far for the Leafs. We'll see if we get more updates here in the next little bit. In Ottawa tonight, they picked up a big point against a really good team in the Dallas Stars. Unfortunately, they did lose defenseman Thomas Chabot. In the process, he only played the first period. After the first period, he did come out for the second. You could tell when he came out that he was kind of skating around. He was testing something out and decided that he couldn't go, went back to the locker room, did not return. So it's hard to say just how serious it could be. I know a lot of people are pointing to the hit he took from the Stars where he went kind of into the bench, like with his backside into the bench. So I thought maybe he hurt his back going into the boards that way. But Travis Green post-game said that he hurt himself reaching for a puck. I'm not quite sure that we really seen any video evidence of that, unless there was something else that people just haven't picked up on. But obviously, it's a big blow to the Ottawa D if he's not there. So, and all their extra D that they'd be comfortable putting in right now are righties, and he's a lefty, so it could complicate things. But we'll have to wait for further updates. Likely, I would assume probably tomorrow. Obviously, the Sens play every other day this week on a homestand, so I don't think it'll be too long before we get more of an update on his situation. Elliotte Friedman had some updates today from the GM meetings taking place. There's a quick one in Toronto. Essentially, there's a few updates, nothing too earth-shattering by any means, but we do have some updates regarding the Olympics, as well as some one of the rule changes that came about in the newest CBA. So essentially, the GM meetings, they're talking a lot about the arena situation for the Olympics, the main arena being built in Milan for the 2026 Olympics. We've heard for some time that they've been running behind schedule on construction. There was supposed to be, I believe, some events held there as like a good way to test everything in January, because we're under 90 days away from the Olympics now, right? So there's not like a ton of time here, and that's going to have to get pushed back. So essentially what Elliotte was saying is that at the meeting, it was just reported that, of course, we know there's going to be NHL executives, most likely as probably tomorrow, I would assume, because some people have already started to make their way over. The Global Series is taking place this week in Sweden. So later this week, the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Nashville Predators will play 2 games in Sweden. Of course, they both have some pretty prominent Swedish star players, Philip Forsberg and Erik Karlsson, and I think a few others between both teams as well. But so they're going to be going over there. So it's going to be a lot of NHL people in Sweden for that. And then from there, a select number of the executives that kind of handle more of the event stuff and arena stuff and all that are going to be heading over to Italy to go check out the venue firsthand, see it up close and personal, in plain sight, to see what's going on with the construction of this arena, so they can get a feel for what exactly is going on, get some reassurances if it's, to confirm it's going to be ready, what's holding things up. And there's really, unfortunately, there's not a lot they can do about it. As Gary Bettman said, it's a lot of things beyond their control, which is unfortunate, and there's not really a whole lot they can do about it, but they want to know where things stand. Of course, if there is concerns, they want to be able to voice those concerns to the IIHF and, of course, the Olympic people over there that are preparing everything. But ultimately, they want to go over and see this arena firsthand and see where things are at, to see if there is something that they need to be worried about, and it's a situation they're monitoring here very closely. We also learned, according to Elliotte, that some teams, and it seems to be a decent amount of them, are not real thrilled with the new rule that requires players demoted to the American Hockey League to actually play a game before being recalled back to the NHL. We've seen common practice in the NHL in recent years where a lot of players, especially guys on entry-level deals or kind of fringe players that didn't need waivers, to go up and down to the NHL, AHL, especially on off days, to kind of reduce their cap hit and increase what they can accrue for cap space a little bit. And at the same time, it saves them a few bucks because those players would then get paid AHL money for those days instead of NHL money. So, yeah, they're cheaping out a little bit. But the bigger thing, I think, more than anything, is that they're allowing themselves more opportunity to accrue cap space. And they're not liking that because sometimes the schedules just don't align it, right? Sometimes they want to send a player down, but they might not have a game for 2, 3, 4 days, and then they got to wait for them to play that game and then bring them back, and depending if it's at home or on the road, it can get us a little bit more complicated, right? So they just can't move players up and down without the ease like they used to be able to. And I'm like, well, to be honest, I mean, I don't really see what the big deal is. I mean, kind of stop cheaping out and be, more better management of your cap space, and it really won't be such an issue. Elliotte says he does not expect it to get reviewed and be discussed further, but some teams are pushing for that. So we'll have to wait and see. We also learned to confirm as well that Canada and USA, for their Olympic rosters, they have to be submitted by December 31st, and they will be announced on New Year's Day, January the 1. He believes that the other countries in the tournament, the European countries, are most likely going to wait to announce their Olympic roster until the World Junior Championships are completed, which is usually, a few days past that. So we'll have to see. But on New Year's Day is when we can expect Canada and USA to reveal their Olympic selection. One more thing that was actually discussed as well at these GM meetings taking place in Toronto. This came from TSN's Insider Trading. Elliot actually didn't mention it in his update and article on that meeting, but the NHL Chief Security Officer was present and addressed the general managers, mainly because I'm sure you probably have heard there's been some pretty prominent stories in other professional leagues like Major League Baseball and in the NBA just here very, very recently with some scandalous betting behaviors that have been going on. And obviously, are the NHL worried that there could be things going on with any of their players that they don't know about, or not even players, but other people that work in the league too? I guess, when you hear of these things in other leagues, I'm sure it crosses their mind that they hope there's nothing going on that's not supposed to be, right? But essentially, the NHL chief security guy came in to speak with GMs just to make sure they knew all the rules, what players and everybody should and should not be doing, and just kind of brief them on, what kind of they've learned from other sports, and just kind of what to keep an eye out for, and kind of review everything again. So they're definitely aware of the situations going on in other leagues, and definitely cognizant of the fact that they hope nothing's going on in their league, but fact of the matter is they have to be prepared that there's been so much investigating going on that you just never know. And they have to know all the ins and outs of it so they can be prepared, right? So we'll see. Hopefully nothing does come from it, from the NHL, especially for players. I mean, we saw the Shane Pinto situation a couple of years back, and that was a weird situation in itself. I mean, that was a big mistake on his part, letting one of his friends log into his betting account, so it had suspicious activity. It obviously had nothing to do with hockey or anything, but still it cost him a half a season and a chunk of money. So we'll see. Hopefully nothing worse comes out as all this stories continue to rise around professional sports here. Now in the trade world, in the rumor mill, we'll talk about a couple of things. One, the St. Louis Blues are a topic. Of course, they're playing the Calgary Flames tonight. Frank Saravalli's report on his daily program today was talking about how he doesn't feel that general manager Doug Armstrong is going to sit on his hands and wait here. I think he's probably seen enough to know that his team is not a playoff team, at least as of right now. Like, they're not looking good, and we know he's not afraid to make big moves. We also know a couple years back when they won the cup, he ended up probably being a lot more patient than he expected himself to be. Even we've heard lots of chatter around all the things he was considering blowing up the team, and he decided to hold off, and then look what happened. I don't know if I have that kind of a special of a group there to do that again this year, but ultimately it's not easy to do. It's super difficult to have a really good coach in Jim Montgomery, and clearly the roster is a bit flawed for what they're seeing the results with. Now, there's a lot of chatter around Jordan Kyrou, obviously because of the healthy scratch not long ago, but according to Saravalli, he really feels the likelihood of that Kyrou being the first player out the door is slim. Of course, we know he has some say over it. He's got a no-move clause. And also for people talking about Kyrou to Toronto, from what I've heard as well, because I know I even mentioned it as a possibility with Craig Berube. I don't know that Craig Berube would welcome that. It sounds like that he may not. I'm not saying he doesn't like Kyrou, but it just sounds like it might not be a situation that he would welcome. I guess you could put it that way. We'll see. I don't know. But I know when it comes to the Blues players, though, Braden Shen is a name that seems to be getting the most attention, and Saravalli says that he would bet on right now possibly being the first player out the door. And he thinks that there's a real possibility that Armstrong might make a move here with one of the Blues' more prominent players sometime in the next week to 10 days. So it might not be all late in the year. This might be more of a last-ditch effort to kind of get things turned around. It might also be a way to get ahead of the trade deadline and get a good return. But, of course, you got to find the right deal. Takes two to tango, so it's hard to say. We've talked before how Shen's been linked to a few teams, predominantly teams like Ottawa and Toronto. They've been teams that have been linked to the most. Doesn't mean I'm sure there's lots of other teams that would consider making that move as well. And it's been a couple of years, too, since Ottawa even acquired. That was, I think, 2 years ago when they were looking into that. And it didn't seem to get super far. I'm assuming that they inquired, the asking price was really high, and they went other directions. So that's kind of the feeling I got based on what we've heard. But yeah, we know, I can say for certainty because of the comments we've seen in the relationship, if Craig Berube was able to bring in anybody from his old Blues team, it probably would be Brayden Schenn. Brayden Schenn would probably be a player that he would be more comfortable kind of going to war with in the playoffs. So we'll see what happens, but Sarah Valley feels that a move is likely coming soon. It could be Schenn, but he also mentions guys like Justin Falk, Jordan Binnington, very much could be on the chopping block here as well. Now, Cam Robinson as well, mostly known for his prospect news and other things. Obviously, has a lot of connections around the league. Made an interesting appearance on Vancouver media show, Sakaris and Price, where they mostly talk about the Canucks. But he was talking about Steven Stamkos, and I guess the reason why the topic came up is there has been some chatter about would the Canucks be a team to go after Stamkos if he moves, because we've talked a lot about Nashville, of course, having a terrible season again. It's 2 years in a row. They're probably going to be making some moves. Will Stamkos move is a big question. I know a lot of people have said, well, a lot of it's going to depend on, is Nashville going to retain money? Because a lot of people like Steven Stamkos. They don't like him at $8 million, right? Which is why Tampa didn't want to re-sign him, because they didn't want to go anywhere near that, thinking that this is probably going to happen. Now, I'm not saying it would have if he would have stayed. It's hard to look back in hindsight. But at the end of the day, is Father Time caught up to Steven Stamkos, or is he just in a bad situation? There's I see a different opinion on both sides of that seem to be had by a lot of different people. Only time will tell. If he gets traded and he starts performing at a high level again, we'll know that it was the situation. If he can't, we'll know he's slowing down. But ultimately, I can see how the situation definitely could very well be part of the issue for him. There's no doubt. But Robinson mentions that based on what he's heard, that if Stamkos leaves Nashville, which his family is quite comfortable with and likes it there, so he might be reluctant to make a move, not wanting to disrupt his family. That is a possibility, because he's going to have say over whatever happens. And if he decides that as much as he's struggling and wouldn't mind moving on, doesn't want to do that to his family, maybe nothing happens. We'll have to wait and see. But Robinson mentions a couple. He says he can see him going to a warm place. Mentions the former rival in the Florida Panthers. That would be interesting. Imagine Stamkos going to Florida. Now, we know they're going to have possibly a big LTIR possibility, especially if Barkov doesn't make it back for the playoffs, which I know Florida fans are probably hoping and seem to think it's a possibility. I still think it's a long shot, but again, maybe Barkov's a superhuman at recovering. I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see on that. But is he going to replace Barkov? No, but he's a big name that can score goals if the right opportunity. We'd have to see. But again, with Florida, the tricky part for them might be as well not only him replacing, being able to use Barkov's money to bring in a top player, but he's still signed beyond this year. So that might be a problem for Florida. That might be too difficult. He also mentions the Anaheim Ducks, the upstart Ducks. And there was talk on TSN Insider Trading tonight as well about the surprising start to the Ducks. Not only are they doing so well, but now, if this continues, are they going to be buyers? Are they going to be looking to add to this young core for a potential, better shot at a playoff success? And the answer was, well, it's early, so it's hard to say definitively. The insiders on TSN didn't think they were out there actively looking right now, but they can see them definitely being buyers looking to add by the deadline. Now, they'd have a better cap situation to absorb that hit. Now, his old buddy Alex Killorn, of course, still plays for the Ducks. Obviously, warm climate, which he was used to in Tampa. So there is that. So we'll see. Not a lot of other connections there, but obviously, I do believe, though, the Ducks were a team that spoke to Stamkos in free agency. He ultimately chose Nashville. I don't think the Ducks offered as much. It was either as much term or money. I know Nashville gave him the better offer, so he went there. And, of course, I think it sounded like he was chatting with Jonathan Marchessault, of course, old teammates from Tampa as well, about maybe joining forces together because they were both in a similar predicament. And the Ducks were one of those teams. So we'll see if they revisit that. And the other thing that Robinson said was that he's heard that Toronto has made multiple inquiries and is really considering and having a look at the Stamkos situation as well. No word really on if Stamkos would accept that. Would he want to go back home to Toronto for a run there? We don't know. Obviously, he had his opportunity in a sense when he had re-signed in Tampa, when he took his free agency till the 11th hour there. Could have had, I was believe Toronto was in the mix if he would have, not signed in Tampa, but it's hard to say with revisionist history in that sense. But I can see that the Leafs, they'd probably at this point, the Leafs would and they're going to be in tough with a tough camp situation, but they could use help up front and on the blue line. Their blue line is struggling hardcore. Like I said before, I really think they're having buyer's remorse on Brandon Carlo. I think Carlo would be a player they would definitely part with for the right trade. What they would have to give up to bring in Stamkos, what they would need Nashville to do salary-wise, it would be complicated. Would they trade Carlo straight up for Stamkos? I'm not so sure. I don't know. I think they would trade Carlo, but they might be more likely to do that to bring in a different type of defenseman. I don't know, but I think they're definitely going to be a team with Brad Treliving that I can see them doing something early too, because for this, especially if they spin their wheels a little bit and lose a few more games here in the coming week or so, could they hit the panic button and make a move to salvage the year? I don't see them getting rid of Craig Berube. He hasn't been there that long, and I honestly don't think he's the problem. Could they change their assistant coaches? Like I said, a lot of people are pointing the finger at Derek Lalonde for the defensive structure, and we'll have to see if something gives there. But obviously, Stamkos to Toronto would be interesting. Another, Ontario-born, Toronto-born area player going home. But again, other options would exist. Possibly Anaheim might be more intriguing to him. It's hard to say, but let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.